IVM.
Welcome to Absolutely Right. I'm your host Aditi Surana. Our Wednesday episode is like witnessing a psychoanalysis or a coaching session. We invite a guest on the show and I interview them to explore their perspectives. I rely on their handwriting sample to understand some deeper aspects of their personality. This study is called graphology. At some point, you may feel as if you're sitting in my office in your invisible avatar like Mr. India and overhearing an intimate conversation. I must say that is the whole point. The idea is to invite you to be an observer to the real-time theatrical performance. Some palpable emotions that we all experience when someone opens their heart to receive genuine feedback. Our guest today is Chetna Chakravarthy, the host of Positively Unlimited podcast on the IVM network. Chetna is an alternate healing practitioner and is also known for her Realign Chakras, Realign Life program. She has helped people tackle chronic illnesses through BioTouch. In today's episode, we will discuss what does your signature speak about you? Why is it even important? What all changed for Chetna when she unknowingly changed her signature? And bust some myths about loneliness and independence. We will jump right in the middle of the action on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep or lose weight or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.
So welcome to Absolutely Right. I'm your host Aditi Surana and today we have Chetna with us. Chetna is a healer. She's a chakra healer and I am very, very interested to know what is the other thing that she does. Like so many different modalities that you have gone through, Chetna. Please brief us on different modalities of healing that you're part of.
So, I have a very, I call it an aligned way of working. I have a modality that I do called BioTouch, which is for the body and chronic ailments.
Never heard about.
So BioTouch is touch healing. It's not a very famous or popular touch healing because the organization, it's something that came up in the 70s in the States.
Really?
And slowly they've kept it pretty tight because it was a small miners town in Colorado that first discovered it, and then they started using it, and 70s and 80s they've used it, and then they split up, and there's lots of practitioners across. In fact, recently we had a practitioner who's from Egypt who learned it, and her father is he's no more. But, he's if you watch the Netflix documentary called The Pyramid Code, there's an episode where her father, Hakim Aywan, comes on it and he talks about BioTouch being an ancient Egyptian healing, which has been rediscovered. And he's got hieroglyphics that show that, so we've got that one little piece of connection that came up. The main foundation is in Arizona, Tucson. Okay. And they've kept it pretty tight because I think in the beginning when they started off, there was a lot of resistance against it, and 70s, 80s was kind of crazy for them. So now they're starting off to reach out and spread it a bit more. I've been practicing it for about now 7 or 8 years.
Wow! So how did you begin this journey? What exactly happened? Why healing?
Oh goodness, I got conned into it. Oh. I don't have any tragedy story in this one. Nothing tragic happened in my life. I was living a very good life. My friends started to...
And you still became a healer. How is that even possible?
Yeah. I'm the anomaly. But my friend started, practicing healing techniques. And everyone in my life, their biggest thing was, how come you are single? There is something not right with you. We have to fix your energies. So which was the pretext under which, and when friends started, everyone needs bakras. So I was the guinea pig.
Okay.
I gladly went and I said, come on, let me see what you're doing. Friends support friends. So, and then somewhere down the line, she just got me into it, saying that you need to be doing this. She gave me a deck of cards and said, you need to be reading. Then when I experienced chakra healing, she said, you need to be doing it. When BioTouch happened, we were organizing the workshop for the practitioner, and she said, you need to do this. And it used to be hilarious because everything she said you need to do, I'd first go with this full resistance and say, shut up, you don't know what you're talking.
No.
I can't do any of this. What is wrong with you? I'm a marketing person. I can't be doing this. And, so there was all of, because I've been a brand and marketing person in my career. I've been doing this since I was 19, like a content and marketing person. So to suddenly come to this was a whole different story.
So now it's a complete healing practitioner career?
Yes. So basically I started off with reading cards. I then did BioTouch, which was touch healing. I then did chakra healing, which was more for emotional and psychological healing. But then there was I came to a point where there was a disconnect because the people would do your 3-4 sessions of chakra healing, experience a subconscious shift, but their conscious mind would throw them back into old patterns. So one, I changed the way I do my chakra healing. Now I do it as an 8-session program where we go through each chakra at a time. We have 7 chakras and we go through that. And I got certified as a life coach. So I also bring in the coaching techniques so that you can shift your conscious mind. And I have coaching programs as well that I run. So depending on what you're going through, you could come with something that's physical, something that's emotional, or something that's completely mind-driven, logic-driven, habit-driven, and we can work through it.
So I have your handwriting in front of me. So before I begin, I have a few questions for you to ask me. If you have anything in mind, if you want me to explore a specific area.
Not really. I'm like I said, I'm a curious kitten. So at this point, I have no questions. I'm a blank slate. So everything that you say is possible, and I'm happy to just go with it.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to my mind is before you even began this journey of healing and otherwise. So I'm going to go much prior to that. And as a person, when you look at things, you're extremely logical, which people might not get when they speak with you, especially in this modality that you are in. But you're extremely logical. Everything that you look at, you have to see it for what it is. You have to understand it and have to build a context. And if the context is not solid, then you would not buy it. You wouldn't go and say, oh, I see this esoteric thing. You're not that kind of a person. If you don't find whatever evidence that you're looking for, you will dismiss it no matter what other people are saying. So that's an interesting part because, I think your profession also has that perception about things being very fluid. But in that field, if I see a person like you who is not fluid in that context, you would just hold on to the clarity and you would not give it up. That must be difficult for people because you're not somebody who would just make them feel good. You would say things which they don't wish to hear.
So to say yes, that is bang on because the only clients I have are the ones who can handle I call it brutal truth. I'm not a kind coach or a healer. I'm compassionate, but I'm not very kind. I'm too honest for them, and I've had enough of my clients turn around and call me up and say, "Listen, I have to tell you something, but you have to promise you won't shout." So that's a usual that comes, but. What you're saying is exactly right. I'm extremely logical and rational, but I feel that given how my practice has evolved, that has only helped me because it makes people relate to esoteric healing like BioTouch and chakra healing that I do, which actually doesn't have solid scientific evidence behind. Somewhere I'm able to communicate it a lot better, and it's like there's better resonance and relatability between my client and me because of the clarity that I come with.
I agree with you, and that's why probably coaching, and that's why probably making it sound more pragmatic than energetic, and that has been your USP. And I think that is a cool thing to have because you don't get stuck into just one area or one perception, but you kind of and bring it in real context, and then you're like, okay, but practically you got to look at things in these 3 manners, and then we also let's take help of your tools to make it better, to enhance it, but not like rely it on completely and be blinded by it. You don't do that. And I think that's...
No, not at all. Not at all. It's like even with BioTouch, and that's a great example of where I struggled with that was because the organization had done certain studies on the effects of it, but they still don't know how it works. And when I met and spoke to the Egyptian practitioner, and I saw the documentary where her father talks about it, and she had already sent the hieroglyphic and the image to me much before that. That's when things clicked with me a lot more, even though I'd already experienced a lot of the effects of BioTouch. I mean, I've used it with my mom with her cancer chemotherapy, and the effects were brilliant. With my dad and his cirrhosis issues and the body pains and stuff. And I've seen it work like magic. But for me to constantly rationalize it was an internal struggle. So in that sense, I'm very logical. I'm very rational. Things have to make sense to me. Otherwise, for me, I won't reject it, but I'll say, maybe it's possible. I don't know. I'll sit in that space.
I totally agree with you. And
I'm very good with sitting on the fence.
So, like the aspect of decision making in your case is when you personal decisions and professional decisions, though you sit on fence for external world, and we are also speaking about your book yesterday, which I'm really curious about, your positive action. But I literally feel when you take steps and when you're very, very convinced, in your mind, you're constantly working at it. It might not look like that you're working at it for people outside, and they might not look at those actions, but in your sense, you are at it. So you would not give up on ideas very easily. Rather, it takes a long time for you to give up on any idea. So if you have seen something, if you believe something, if you have understood something, it takes considerable amount of time for you to say, okay, I'm not going to do it. Until and unless it is not done, until and unless you don't open your spaces, you're not fully sure, you won't give up. And there are very few things that you have technically given up on. They have come around.
I haven't given up on anything unless I have executed it. It's my rule. Yeah. Unless I execute it, I will not give up on it. And I will execute and fail. I'll take whatever loss comes, I will execute and fail. I'm quite the thing, but I will not give up unless I've executed it. I also have like you're saying, you're bang on with that again, because I have no sense of deadline. I'm not running out of time. I don't have that I don't know whether that it's a muscle or what, it doesn't exist. There's an idea that I've sat on for 2 years and it's only coming to light now. And I'm fine with it. Absolutely fine. Come on, let's go. It's like that.
As long as you have given your best shot and you know that you are trying things in the manner.
I have to execute it for me to say it's a failure. Without executing it, without seeing it there tangibly in front of me, I can't discard an idea that I have. Unless right in the beginning I've done the pros and cons and logically it's not making sense, that's a different story.
No. Once you take up the project, you don't give it up once you take up the project. So if you might have known this, I think in handwriting, it's a very common thing. Handwriting talks about who you are, and your signature talks about who people think you are, with or without your knowledge. It's not necessarily that you are giving those signals or you are speaking with them, but with or without your knowledge, we all of us project certain conversations, certain thoughts, certain persona, and people perceive you like that. So that's what your signature talks about. Now, in your case, when you sign, your Chetna C and the Chakravarthy C both are overlapping on top of each other. Now, anybody's signature, even for listeners, if you have any overlap in your signature, that definitely means the personal space is always, in a way, combined with your family space. That means you're very, very close to your family, but at the same time, there is a sense of friction with your family because at some level, it becomes too close. So it's like you're very close and then you are like, okay, I need a space. I need my space. And then you're again too close. So that keeps happening between your family members and you. It could be one member or many members, but definitely a kind of intense relationship and bonds.
Yeah, that's we're pretty much like that. And it's, it's interesting that you say that because we're a small family. We're 4 of us and cousins, everyone is in other cities and towns. And my parents aren't superbly close to, we don't have the joint family kind of system because my parents have had an intercaste marriage. So we've been a unit by ourselves since childhood. So we've been one. Also.
I can also relate because I'm one, so I know what it means.
Yeah. So like cousins and relatives and all, please come over and we love you and all of that. But there's still that that kind of a thing. But and we've been raised to be extremely independent. Do whatever you want to do, go wherever you want to go. I've never had my parents ever say, "Will you look after me when I'm old?" That's not a statement that I've ever heard. In fact, my parents have said, "Kid, listen, please grow up and go. We'll figure ourselves out." Because my mom was Malayali. Malayali is very typically, get out of my house. Let me be. You've gotten married now. You figure your own life. Or you're old enough to earn, so you figure yourself out. So it's fabulous, right? And my dad's quite the adventurer. So we've not had this thing of we need you to take care of us kind of a thing. But at the same time, the unit is very strong. It's to say that no matter what happens, we are still a family. You can behave however you want with me. You can do what you want. I will be angry with you for 2 weeks, but there's no going anywhere.
Definitely.
Right? So in that sense, we're very closely knit. So
knit family, yeah.
It becomes harder. It became harder for a little period with age because you were ready to go out there and do a lot of things. And at the same time, leaving family back was like, okay, I need to handle certain things. I need to take care of certain things. Kind of that friction was there. But there's no, it's an internal friction. It's not on the outside. Like there's no push and pull in the family in the equations as such.
Right.
Touch wood. We fight. But that's because we are all boisterous. We're a family of 4 boisterous creatures. So, so the arguments are quite fun that way. But the friction is more internal. So the friction is
I'm
more
talking about internal.
Yeah. So it's it's in sense of duty versus my sense of freedom. It's that, which is an interesting.
Exactly what I'm referring to because you should be 2 signatures. One is only your name, and another is like this absolute connection with family. And when you have 2 extremes,
so there's the question that I have for you. See, I said the questions will come. Now there's a question for you. So the second signature, which is only my name, it's a fairly recent one. Must be about 3 or 4 years old. And I still only use it in places where I have to sign courier or sign a registrar or something like that. And the reason why I created that was also because of another graphologist. I was at an exhibition, I had a stall and I was doing sessions. So went up to see what other people were doing. And there was a graphologist there who looked at my signature and said that you are hiding and you need to have a signature where there is you and you need to step out. Because that will help you do that much more in the work that you are doing. That's when I created that signature. Also, another thing that I was told was, in my old signature where I signed my full surname, which by the way, it was my mother's rule. You have to sign your full name. That surname is so long, na. When you have to sign those 40 pages, every time I think of my mom and I say, Ma, why Ma? So she never taught us to do initials, okay? So it doesn't matter. You have to sign the full name. I don't have initials. So when he looked at it, he said that the Y, when I write my Y, which is the last alphabet or letter, I mark the
Y
dash backwards.
Right. So it's literally like it comes down and it moves towards left and it is left there. Right.
Yeah. And he told me that you need to sign something that is forward with your name, which is where the second signature, which is only my name, came up. But I don't use it very often. Like I said, it's only to sign couriers.
So, do you know distinctly this moment where you changed your signature? Do you know that? Just mark it in your mind because I want to say pre-signature, post-signature analysis I want to do. I'm also building this on the context that signature change can shift a lot. And why it shifts, it's not only shifting things because you are looking at them differently. It shifts because signature represents your identity. And when you put something on the paper, you say it's not only my signature, but it's my entire persona out there. When I am not there, consider this as me or my approval. So I always call this like your wedding gown. So, whatever you're wearing on a daily basis, that's okay. But at the very moment something becomes that significant and you're going to wear it and you're going to show it and you're going to show it to your grandkids, then that becomes that important in your life. So you put your thoughts, you make sure that you are at your best self. Now, similarly, the signature is that overall idea of how do I represent myself forever, pretty much. We don't make signatures thinking that we will change them. We make signatures with an idea that, once I make it, that will remain my signature, and I hope it turns into an autograph at one point in time. But that's the whole idea that people have. So when you're signing, you're putting your entire self out there, and it has multiple aspects. It has you, it has your family members, it has your working style, it has your work relationships. So all these aspects, because these are all your public persona identity points, right? So when you moved your signature from your old one to the new one, let me tell you what has shifted. Now, one of the thoughts that you feel, which you never expected yourself to look at, but you do feel like moving out, moving away from whatever you were doing before that. It could be physically moving out, or it could be emotionally moving out, but that became like an important part of your journey of moving out and finding your own space. Now, how far you go, how fast you find it out, depends on how important that idea becomes. But that thought has got initiated for sure. I do not know about this staying backward, moving forward. I don't have that logic with signature, but I do believe that signatures that are overlapping are self-destructive in many ways. So in your case, that self-destruction is questioned at a very, very deep level. So you were doing certain things which were not necessarily nurturing. They were not necessarily helping. And you really put a stop to it after the signature shift. And you did it without technically getting it right. You did it because you thought this is the thing to do. Like I would say that your signature requires certain kind of different additions. And this signature that you have made, which is only your name, Chetna, shouldn't be your signature. However, right now we have already seen the shift without you doing it in a scientific or technical manner. You just did it because you wanted to get away from your previous one. I feel in your previous signature, you really executed things way more than what you have done in last 3 years. So you might have taken deeper projects, but the kind of execution and the kind of activity commitment that you had was much higher. Now, did you do it consciously? Did you do it subconsciously? It's up to you to decide, because that is something I won't comment at this point in time. Also, there are so many other personal things shifted for you, which we can also discuss later, because many things moved and friends moved, and so a shift happened, but you didn't realize it. And obviously, we don't correlate that to signature change and all of that. But that has happened for sure. One aspect that I would like to speak about is last 2 years in your life, you have been on a roll in terms of it could be either an emotional roller coaster or work-wise roller coaster. Anything you would like to speak about or ask me about, we can then explore that.
So here's the thing. What you're saying is right. The only piece that I don't agree with is saying that before the signature I was more active, and after it execution has not been as much, because I actually personally, my life has been reverse. After the signature change, my execution has been in fact faster and a lot more, and the decisions have been quicker and the action has been much more.
So it could be the quantity of action. For example, before this signature, you took lots of actions, and as I said, activity orientation was much higher.
Not really. So which is what I'm wondering, because before this, I was in fact a very easy, go with the flow, it will happen, I don't want anything, I'm chilling, life is good kind of a space. Although there were certain ambitions and I kept trying certain things. Also because before the signature change, and I know I'm calling it signature change, but I'm actually meaning before the healing practice was chosen, because the signature change happened after the healing practice was chosen, right? And even when I changed the signature, I still had two ventures. One was the healing practice, and one was my food business that I had started up a year and a half before that. So in that sense, it was a period of change. But I do feel that activity and execution has been way higher than what it was before. So that's the only piece that I'm wondering. But that, I mean, it can be their perception.
No, also, sometimes we do feel like physical action. Many times we take action in a horizontal manner. We do this a bit, we do this a bit, we do this a bit, we do this a bit. We do not move forward necessarily. In last 2 the moving forward has been a direct impact. So it has been more aligned for sure. But before that, the activities, according to me, were much higher, which means the physical action was much higher, but it wasn't aligned. So it was like a lot of action.
So question, are you saying, so my signature, that change or whatever I did about some 4 or 5 years ago, approximately, or maybe slightly even more. I think 2014, I must have done it. We're in 20, so six years ago, right? 2 years, these last 2 years, yes, has been exactly like you're saying. The actions and the result is more aligned. A lot more is coming through. It's like saying the seeds that you have sown, now you are harvesting. Like I'm reaching that stage, and like there's growth, there's a lot of stuff that's happening personally and professionally, both ways. So there's a lot happening in that sense. So the 2 years, yes. But what I'm saying in terms of...
They're not completely related. First comments I made about signature...
so I'm at that.
6 years ago. And last 2 years specifically, I was talking about how life has become like this super fast.
That's absolutely right. Because life has, in the last 2 years, everything has shifted. It's like playing Super Mario and leveling up. It's like that level up just happened. It's like one morning you woke up and it was just like a different level. You're like, there was no smoothly flowing into level up.
No, not at all.
Pick the moment and it happened. So yeah, last 2 years have 100% been
that. Chetna, that has been your life anyways.
Yeah, suddenly there's a level up that just suddenly comes.
Suddenly happens. It's not like you're not given any preparation time to begin.
No. It's like, so I learned swimming. I learned swimming as a child by being pushed into the deep end. Literally, I'm not joking about that. I didn't learn in a proper pool which had shallow and deep and all of that. I learned in a 10 by 10 tank on the farm which had green color river water with moss on the floor. And there were frogs in it. So I learned swimming like that. So we used to put on clothes and we used to just be thrown into it. Now swim.
Oh my God.
So there's a bunch of us kids who are like these jungle kids who learn to swim. So for me, I think that's a life lesson in general, emotionally and mentally. I have no clue how to get into shallow waters. I don't understand it. I say, kya hai? What do we want to do? Chalo. Now, let's take the leap. We'll see. So that's pretty much, that stayed.
Okay. So if you want me to comment about something which is, active in your space right now, what would it be?
Well, okay. Here's what I'd like to know, if there is a sense of it coming out from my handwriting, which is my work life versus my personal life. And I'm not talking about personal life as in family and friends. I'm talking about work life versus a relationship, right? Because the one thing that has worked for me, and it's effortless, and honestly, I've switched professions. The other day I counted it during an Insta life and I've switched some 6 professions.
Wow.
From 19 till now, I means I'm my father's daughter only. Every 3 years, 4 years, something we're doing. Okay. Nice. So it's never been a problem though. I've succeeded. Touch wood. Disclaimer. I'm not being arrogant. Don't take it away. I'm very happy. Modestly saying it. I've succeeded at...
Okay, just for the listeners, she said that directly to the God.
Yeah. Sorry, I do these things to all the listeners. I do these things. I talk to myself and to him above. So, not to my third floor neighbor. No, but the thing is that when it comes to work, I've pretty much gone into it, executed, and succeeded. Yes, it has its ups and downs. And yes, there have been a couple of things that I've failed at, but it's not been like it doesn't work. Whereas the relationship space, for a lot of reasons which I know now, it's been up and down and it's been a struggle, etc. Also, I'm not someone who falls into love or gets into relationships very easily. I do take my time, and I have long gaps between relationships, like long gaps, and I'm quite okay in that. It's not like I'm struggling with it or anything. So when you see my handwriting, do you see any correlation, any conflict, anything that can be worked on too?
So, we began the conversation by me saying that how you being honest and in a way logical is one of the strengths that you have in your professional life. Now, that's exactly what goes against you when it comes to relationships. Most of the people expect a kind of nurturing space from you because you are a person like that. Your kindness is about telling the person what he or she requires to do. Your kindness is also from a space of doing what is correct and what would help them grow eventually. Now, and which again is glorified and celebrated and validated professionally in so many ways, right? Now, the same thing, the same aspect in a relationship with a man works against you, because there, that is not your job. That is, your job is to be a companion, somebody who can be on her own journey. And if the support is needed, then only you may provide a platform, but most of the time let the person be. Now that's not easy for you. If you can see the person is going and banging his head, or he may bang it, which happens to you a lot, that you can see things coming your way or his way, all like way before it can happen, like way before. And then most often than not, you go barge in and you want to protect, you barge in, you want to help. And I think that is a bigger challenge,
Mm.
because most men, and I'm not talking about it as a generic comment, but we chemically require different things from people, and nurturing is also like a space where you are accepted for everything. Like, most people also tell me that they want to come home, and no matter what is happening outside, they want to feel comfortable and secured and accepted. Now, with you, that sense of home doesn't happen, because you're like, but if you're going to go and bang your head yourself, and if I'm telling you not to do it, you better don't do it, because I'm talking about your larger good. And though that is your area of caring, you haven't come across people who understand that. It's not that, and there are people who get this kind of caring, and I know that. Also, you're very straightforward. So I always talk about this thing called, tactic in relationship. Tactic is not about being honest. It's about telling people what they're willing to hear. One of my examples here is, imagine somebody's parent is really sick, like really sick, which means they are, in last moments of their life. And if you have to make that call, you don't say that they're in the last moment. They say, oh, they're serious. And you actually give them some time to buy in and make sure that they can absorb the information and be prepared. And by the time they reach the hospital, they are mentally ready to accept whatever news. But if you tell the truth, which itself is in a way correct thing to do, is not something that the person can deal with or ready to deal with. Also, being a coach myself, I feel pity at times when people who have to put up with us, because you're always on your journey, right? Like, you're constantly growing and you're like, on my next stage, on my next journey. So for other people to kind of cope up with it, like, they don't feel settled. So in one place, you're turning around and guiding them, do this, don't do this, all of that. In second place, when you are being completely vulnerable, people don't know how to deal with you, because you're so sorted when it comes to giving information. So a lot more training and coaching will be required when it comes to dealing with relationships, because you have to give people tools and methods to deal with you when you break down, because all of us do in different ways.
But which like you were saying, the last 2 years has been that shift, which is in the personal space, that has been the shift. One was to not, I didn't do it consciously, but subconsciously, it was always about finding the men who needed fixing, which is a perennial coach and healer problem. And when it comes to relationships, it's just, that's the magnet, right? So it was consciously saying, so consciously saying no to anyone who needed fixing, saying no, not that person, no, can't happen, right? And the second thing, like you're saying, is specifically telling people, and this actually came up with friends about 4 years ago, more than it came up in the relationship. So it was something that already got sorted, because I've always been the strong one. I've been in case of emergency number since I was 13. So it's not something that's new that came up because of the healing, right? But the shift that happened was me starting to specify with friends and people that I'm close to that what they need to do exactly when I'm in an X state or a Y state or I'm saying something. So, which is brilliant, because now I have trained people around me. Yes, I've trained the friends. So, and hence in the relationship also, the man is being trained, saying, hello, this is what you're supposed to do.
So the manual is ready, you're saying. The whole balance of
and I think the shift, the shift actually came and this is something for anyone who's listening there and who struggles with this kind of a relationship issue, right? Where you're the strong one and you're the clear-cut one. Instead of sitting in the oh, nobody understands me and oh, when will I find somebody who understands me state, even in personal relationships, I flipped to the point of saying, okay, let me logically deal with this. So I used my biggest strength, which was logic and rationalizing. And logic told me that, why are you waiting for someone to read your mind? Why don't you just spell it out? And there's no harm in that. And the moment I started spelling it out and embraced my true nature, instead of trying to be something different, it's just working. It just started working.
Most of the time we get stuck to the role, right? Like what you're saying is also the role of being the caretaker, care provider, making sure you're there for people. So that role, you identify with that role so much that you do not allow yourself any other space available. And as human beings, we are not one thing over another. There's so much happening at the same time.
Exactly.
And that is not available when we get stuck in moments like these. So
I've just learned to say, heads up, low energy, heads up, bad mood, heads up, PMSing, heads up, haven't slept enough. Like I know, because I'm so logical and I'm aware, I know my trigger points.
Yes.
So now I don't mince my words, and I've gone one step ahead in this logical state where I've identified which person can handle me in which situation.
Wow. Perfect.
So now there is one. So I know exactly who I'm calling when. Who to call when, which person to stay away from, and which person to call for which trigger. So,
my God, that is like taking the whole tactic to another level altogether.
But this is 2 years, Super Mario level up.
Makes sense. That is understood completely. So another aspect of relationship which I feel is very crucial for you and it kind of gets to you is the constant need for learning is, that you have that as the most important agenda in any walk of life. There's nothing that you can do without being on the learning curve. Now, the other person, if he is not a companion on the learning curve, that is your biggest problem. Like any other thing is okay. Like you're like, okay, acceptable, understandable, this, that, whatever. But the very moment it comes to somebody choosing to walk with you or not, when it comes to the new learning curve and new learning spaces, is where the challenge begins. Because that you don't understand. You're like, I don't know how one cannot do that. And this is where you become stronger judgmental person. So you're already strong. And in this case, and your opinions generally matter in relationship a lot. And now you also become judgmental because when you're okay person failing. You're okay even for yourself. You're okay you failing. But you're not okay things not attempting it. Things not, if you don't take control over it and if you don't work at it, that's not okay for you.
So one of the things that I have realized very clearly is intellectual stimulation for me is number one. If I cannot have, it's number one. It's number one.
I'm also laughing. Somebody said that. So what type of man? What matters to you in a man? I said gray matter. That's exactly what you're saying.
So I mean, it doesn't buy me flowers. Doesn't say I love you 5 times a day. Fine, don't. I will deal with it. But if you cannot have a conversation with me about things happening in the world and whether it's business or whether it's markets or whether it's football or whether it's, the topic. Because for me, I'm curious. I will learn anything and everything, right? I'll take it in because I will ask questions and stuff. So for me, I've realized that if I have somebody who is not willing to have discussions and talk about things that are happening, it frazzles me. Like I'll give you a very it's an amusing conversation around a tragedy that happened. So was it the Notre Dame that burnt the roof? The roof, yeah. So this was last year, right. And it hit me, okay, because I love history. So for me, saying that a piece of history was going up in flames was like a thing. And at that point, I was kind of dating somebody. And, I'm messaging this person and this person replies saying, yeah, so many people die anyway. What a thing to talk about. That was immediate switch off. For me, that was like, okay, this is not going to work. And I tried for 3 months more after that. But that incident, I knew it's not going to work. For somebody who
But this is what I mean. Like, it's like, no, this is what I mean by you being judgmental.
Fully judgmental in how? Like, it took me like 24 hours to say, woman, calm down. It may not be of his interest. You need to calm down.
Yeah.
And which is why I did give it a shot for another 3-4 months. Eventually, there were a lot of other things, because this also shows a core nature that came up, right? Which came up in many other ways. But in that equation, I realized that between physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual connection, my number one need, my biggest need, I won't say number one, but my appetite is largest for intellectual.
Right.
And for me, and hence when somebody is not willing to grow and evolve, someone doesn't have goals, someone doesn't have aspirations, and the aspirations have to be beyond, I want to travel the world, kindly. Please, that's like old school now. Like, get on with it. If I don't have
years anyway, so what?
Yeah, exactly. So if I don't have somebody who's evolving, I switch off. So that was my learning last year, that for me, intellectual space is loudest.
So then, I want to tell something here. I feel that the space is the loudest. At the same time, it's like is ever growing and ever expanding. Yeah. So what would happen over a period of time is you will require to create multiple friends or avenues in which you're stimulated, because no one man will ever fit the bill. Yeah. Okay, so no matter what opinion we are talking about here, but
absolutely,
whatever the person does, you would not be satisfied in having conversations. So I would say, if you can, don't take it off your table in this context, but if you can make it smaller by having your need for intellectual stimulation being satisfied already. So if a man comes along,
it's again bang on, because I'm a true blue Bombay girl of the 90s. I have 40,000 friends. And friends for every reason and purpose, and I'm constantly making friends. And again, this is a shift of these. Well, I've always had lots of friends, but making sure that I have friends for everything that I want to do, every interest of mine is
the long list.
It's a long list. It's a long list. It's like when if and when I get married, the wedding list is not relatives. It's got 40,000 friends. That's how many people I will have to have there. God forbid if I have to have a church wedding, then my bridesmaids will be till outside the church, for all I know, because everyone will have to be there. So it's one of the other learnings, like you're saying, it's very bang on, that instead of expecting everything from one person, including in friendships, how to have a little bit of everything from different people.
Right. And that's going to be very helpful for you, because, like that also is not having that person is also getting into how can it not happen zone, right? That judgmental zone is where it becomes a natural reaction. So you don't even realize when you switch to that.
To be very honest, and actually when you're saying judgmental, and I'm going to say this, my loudest judgment at this point is, you said you wanted to change, but you're not doing anything. Means then why you're bothering me? That's my biggest obstacle and fight, which in the workspace, because of clients having given me that space, I can still push and nudge and work around it. But in my personal space with friends, I'm learning to accept that people may say something, but not really act upon it, and that's okay. And that's a big learning that's in process right now.
So I always say this, that my job as a friend, being a coach otherwise, is to shut up. Like as a friend, if I try to be a coach, it's almost like not having that friendship at all. So all I have to do is like shut up. I really practice this. When people are narrating their scenarios, friends are doing it, I nod and I hear and I do everything, but I just do not get into this temptation. And I think it took probably 15 years to know what to say. And I think it's going to take 15 more years to know how to shut up completely when you're not supposed to speak. I think that's a big lesson.
100%. Fully feel you, because now I have moments when a friend calls up and she's ranting and I'm like, you called the wrong friend. To rant, you need to call that person. When you need a solution, you call me back. I said, you called the wrong friend. Dude.
I hear you. I hear you. So another aspect of you doing doing relationship also, even friendships for that matter, you can keep records. You can keep though you have so many friends, you know exactly what journey, what person went through and how they went wrong there, or how they kind of, made these decisions they shouldn't have. And next time, so if you observe somebody do that, you can be straightforward, but at the same time, you observe so much that you're a great listener. You may come across as somebody who may barge in and say things, blah, blah, blah. But with all honesty, you are a great listener. People call you when they are in problems also because you listen wholeheartedly. They know that you would not buy their bullshit. And that's the reason they call you. That's the reason they come up with all their stupidity and they're like, I did this, I did that, this happened, that happened. Because they know that you will see through it and you will not buy into their stories that they are, trying to fool themselves with. And you'll see and say what they require to hear. It's just that the same thing in relationships, you'll have to find another tactic to do that.
So right now I'm hoping that I don't have to find another tactic because right now the man seems to be behaving like the friends. So I'm like, okay, he's digesting. So let's see how far this goes. So let's just hope and pray that it's working in an okay manner right now. We'll see.
We will keep you posted on our next episode of Absolutely Right. This is from my side. If you have any other question that you think you would like to dive deep,
I do have a question. And it again comes back to that new signature, which, like you rightly pointed out, it's not something that I was satisfied with even then. But like me, I jumped into the deep end. So sign and we'll see. It'll evolve, right? Mm-hmm. So hence I've sat with it, and it's been evolving. And it's not been evolving. It's stuck. But now, like yesterday when I wrote it, right? I wrote it and I immediately felt it lacks the softness that I as a person have. It has my clarity and it has my straightforwardness and it has the flow. It also has space because of the way I write it. It also has space, but it lacks softness. It lacks love. It lacks nurturing. For me, those are the thoughts that kept coming to my mind when I was writing it. Like the flow seems staccato, if I didn't.
I won't say that. I would say flow is not a challenge, but I feel it is not a complete representation of who you are, is what you're saying. Okay. Like it's so many parts of you are missing, and I agree with you. I feel that the strokes, the way they're formed at this point in time, and I wish I can show this to our listeners, but we cannot do that because the signature. So I would anyway just not send photos of that. But the whole idea is when your signature does not represent all part of you, it kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. So there are two parts that have to match always. One is who you're becoming, not who you were, not who your ideas are. It has to be that space where tomorrow you may become someone else and you may change your career, but still the Chetna essence of it has to be captured in your signature for you to grow with it. I also feel it has to match the kind of professional ethics you have as a person, because you may move from one profession to another, but if you are this logical person, that would remain. If you're somebody who makes sure that you would do your research in a certain manner. So I feel right now your signature is slightly contrary in that sense. Like it does not have that clarity that otherwise you have as a person. Right? So do we require to make certain changes there? I feel yes. And we require to move it into a zone where it represents your professional and personal space at a different level altogether. Can I comment about it right now? Unfortunately, no, because for me, signature evolves. We take 45 days to build somebody's signature. So it has gone through 6 weeks process, and we also support it with your signature and handwriting changes. So handwriting graphotherapy is an important part.
Correct.
Where you use graphotherapy to build your persona first, and signature is like a mask. So you do the restructuring by putting the mask only when your internal organs are ready to do the restructuring.
Got it.
So that's how it is built.
So I have 2 more questions for you. When you change your signature, is it important to change it officially on all documents? Or the energy shift will happen whether or not you shift it on all documents? Because in India, changing documents is like a nightmare. So
I agree. And I always tell people that if you can, nothing like it. Like I have had clients who have gone from like directors of the company, so they got it changed 250 places. So their team was working for I think 15, 20 days and they said this has to be done, so it has to be done. And there are other people who haven't done it. I'm of an opinion that we don't sign off now. Like in last few years, signing has become much lesser than what it used to be. So now if you have to change your signature, you have to practice it every day. So there is certain number, like for 45 days, if you sign a signature in a new style, it starts working. Also, we don't change signature as one shift. I gradually change it. So in first week, I would add certain aspects. Second week, certain other things. And you keep building on it. So we are moving you from where you are to where you think you and where I think we should go in a gradual manner. So there is no jhatka there. So when that happens, by the time you take 6 weeks, it's already subconsciously built. So whether you change it or you don't change it officially, it doesn't matter. So as long as you remember it and you continue throughout the new signature.
Throughout.
Second question?
Okay. My second question is, if we have to, and I'm asking this for me because I'm calling you up after this. If we have to, like you're saying, it's a 6-week thing. How does it work? Because so for instance, if someone comes to me, I know it's 90-minute sessions once a week, it's at 8 weeks, right? So how does it work with you? What is the process of, and like you're saying, there's also certain other alphabets will have to change. General handwriting will have to change.
Right. General handwriting. Okay.
Yeah, I have this question and then I have a funny question for you. See, I told you questions will come. Now, they're starting now. So tell me, what's the process for someone to work with you on this?
Also, tell people this. Yesterday when you were speaking, I said, do you have any questions for me? Why don't you think about it? So she said, no. And now I'm going to go with the flow and then Paresh Rawal will come. And then we laughed so much. So it's Judai. The characters of Judai.
That's the
heart on his head. So yes.
So now it's all coming out. Okay. So how does the process work?
So you start with a short session. Like I generally, unlike other counselors or most people who speak and who are very, very kind to hear and hear the stories, I'm not that kind of a coach. Being a high performance coach, I literally get to the issue. So I do a 30-minute session before you start the process. Then for 45 days, this is a customized therapy. So after studying what is going wrong and after talking to you, I build the therapy, and that is my internal rewiring process. That's one of the most important things on which I build everything in my coaching modules. So after 45 days of doing the therapy, which you will have constant support from to make sure that you're doing it correctly and you're not going all over the place and doing your stroke on your own. So we reach a point after 45 days, there's one more session to make sure that I close the loops that I had opened with you. But sessions are like the wires that plug in, whereas the therapy is like internal wiring, which requires more work and more attention from your end. So this is how the process works. So 2 sessions, and in between you do 45 days of exactly, so 6 weeks. So every 2 weeks we change the therapy, and it goes like medicines. So you're closely monitored when you're on these medicines, but we make sure that the operations and closing the wound happens in first and last part of the module. Do you have to change your otherwise handwriting? Nowadays, no one writes as such. So that's not a big deal. That's not a big situation. But as I said, this is a mental workout. So when you do practice certain strokes, they start building new neural pathways. So you have to give that space for 45 days for rewiring to be completed. So you can't do quick fixes and only change signature and then see shift. Then you see abrupt shift. And then that kind of creates all the imbalance. To make it in a scientific manner, and I feel professionally I would have been in a different zone of quick fixes and quick money if I would have done chalo signature change karte hai types. But I don't believe in it. I personally feel if I can't do the entire operation, I might as well not touch the process at all. So I'm personally very diligent and methodical when it comes to these processes. So I follow it with people exactly how I have discovered them or I've done as my research on. So no alphabet changing, no changing in your handwriting is required. You just have to practice it. And many of them are non-alphabet strokes. So sometimes you might have seen that we have a very famous stroke called flow of thoughts, which is a S formation stroke, but it is not letter S. It's just like a stroke that moves on. It's a non-alphabet stroke. Similarly, we have many other non-alphabet strokes. It's just that you have to get to it and you have to observe your breathing, and it's a romantic process.
Okay, so here's the funny question for you.
Yes,
what do you do with somebody who's like that compounder wala handwriting, that like no scribble?
Illegible.
Illegible. So what to do with that? Means as a graphologist, I'm very curious what happens there. Like mine is still a decent handwriting. I will say this. There's no modesty and all. I know my handwriting is decent, but what do you do with that? And scribbling.
So, scribbling or whatever you think is illegible, for me they're graphs. So it doesn't matter. So they still have pressure, they still have spacing between the letter, they still have beginning and ending stroke. So graphology is 800 strokes put into action. So all of that is included in building a graph. So it does not matter at all. But what does it mean at large? If your handwriting, as a listener who's listening, and if your handwriting is illegible, that means two things. One is you prefer speed over quality. So sometimes you're so busy getting things done, that's okay if the quality is compromised in every walk of life. And second thing is, you might be really busy and, you really have so much to do that you have to compromise certain things and just go with it. So your mind moves much faster than your hand. But I feel that can also happen when you are really focused on speed over quality. So that is the fundamental idea. But I remember doing an event where I analyzed 400 psychiatrists in a day, and they were all doctors. It was like an event that some pharma company had organized, and we didn't expect so many people to come. And we thought psychiatrists, they wouldn't want someone else to talk about their personality. But that's what happened. And I was speaking back to back, and all doctors' handwriting. So we kept laughing through the day. I'm like, oh my God, doctor's handwriting, how is it not illegible? I can read your handwriting. How is that even possible? Not every doctor would have illegible handwriting. That was like a myth and a joke. So one doctor, interestingly, he wanted to test my knowledge. So he came at say 12 o'clock, and at 4 p.m. he came again. And he showed me his handwriting. And I was meeting so many people that day, I forgot their faces because everything became like one energy and some face moving, and I could not remember people. I look at his handwriting and I'm like, I'm going to store this handwriting because I think I saw somebody so similar. And handwritings are not identical, but I think this handwriting is identical. I saw it today itself. I'm going to save this handwriting. And he was so ashamed. He said, Madam, I'm so sorry. Why, what happened? I was the same person who came 4 hours ago. I thought you are just talking in air, and I wanted to test you. I'm like, well, that has worked very well for you. So
basically, then you had to look up and say, "Bach gayi, bacha liya, thank you."
This happens to me. I remember handwriting and I forget faces at times. So it's like I remember the curves, I remember the stories, but I forget faces. So
yeah, that's like I remember the life stories. I usually say that I have terrible memory, and I forget tasks to do and people. I can't remember birthdays and all of that kind of stuff happens. But I will remember conversations. It's strange how I will remember conversations, and people will tell me, and they'll say, I told you this 3 years ago. And we've done 40 sessions after that. How do you know? I said, because I know. Now this is coming back from there, So
I know exactly what you're saying. That 40 sessions do not matter as long as you're connecting to the exact energy and the conversation. Also, I think it's how it builds, right? In your mind, it becomes like the entire visual board. Like pretty much you see everything clearly. So
it's a movie. Every person is a movie is a hero in their own movie, na? So that's there's a video library with that many movies.
And I think you and I are like those permanent people in the audience. Like, yes. We will watch it. Yes. And then we will also critique it by making our own notes on it. Like, that's good. That directional plot could have changed and people could have said something else. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So I have yes. Paresh Rawal has expended all questions for now. I'm quite happy.
Yes. So, Chetna, every time you make choices in your life, every time you make decisions, because you're very, very independent and you are also the stronger person and you can also argue, it's very difficult for people to put up their own stand, put up their own argument in front of you. So my small suggestion before we conclude today's session would be, what if you take out certain ways or find some methods for yourself by which you let those people get benefit of doubt, or like, not be inauthentic, but give room for them to really take charge. Because when you're there, it becomes obvious that Chetna will take charge and I don't have to do much and things would fall in place. What if you withdraw and you let your space be? Let them be and let them take charge. That's something how mothers do it for their kids. And that's a conscious choice, but probably doing it with friends and relationships would come really handy. At this point in time, you keep taking that overloading responsibilities. And I'm saying overloads because they are difficult for you, but you still bend backwards and you make sure it is done emotionally and at so many other levels. So what if you drop that? And what if you keep holding yourself responsible as a habit, that you become aware of it? What if you become aware of that and you don't do it? Like, for a change, for next 3-4 months, experiment with this thought is what my suggestion would be.
I coach, it's taking 4 steps back. In Cha-Cha, there is no forward movement this time. I'm only doing backward. But that is great advice at this point of time. And I think there's no better time to practice it than the lockdown.
Yeah.
Because no one's going anywhere. There's no, major change on the outside. Everything can be tried right now.
Yeah. And I think if you had that, I think that nurturing side of you, which is already available, will come out more distinctly. So right now, other people have to fight through. It's like coconut, right? It's so hard on the external side, and when we look at it, we feel, there might not be any softness to it. And that's what happens, and people get intimidated and they find you too clear and too this, too that. But if they don't reach the core, they wouldn't know how beautiful and how calming it could be. But most of the people, most of the players kind of die in that process of reaching the core. But if you do not make it that difficult, if you do not make those entry points so tough, that journey will become easier for you also, because it comes from not falling and not failing and making sure things work out. But what if you do not do that? It might become a different journey.
Also another perspective that I get when you say this to me literally is and I always remind myself of this, and maybe need to remind myself of it a little bit more, is everyone will not do things the same way as I will, or in the same pace, or in the same with the same energy level, or with the same clarity.
Sensitivity. Sensitivity. Your bigger challenge is sensitivity. If they're not sensible, if they don't have sensitivity, they don't have perspective to look at things as a whole thing. What gets to you is when people become selective in their understanding. That you do not like. If they have that overall picture and if they still choose an opinion, you're okay with it.
Yeah.
But that is your style. That is not the style.
So to just remember that everyone is not going to be able to, we're not all the same. In simple words, we're not all the same, and we need to make room for different reactions and responses, especially those that are completely different from ours in the same situation.
Yes.
So
completely.
I hear you, coach. I hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was very different. Like, I have never spoken to a healer on the show. And also I must say that, like, I always feel talking to healers can be tricky because sometimes they are not open to hear from other people. So every time I initially, when I was stepping into the conversation, I was watching my words and I was like, I do not want to say something which goes against your own ethos and the way you look at things. But it was an honest conversation. Thank you so much. It was fun for me.
Thank you so much. I had I really had fun. And I know what you're saying about a lot of other healers. I know that because I've faced it. But yeah, for me, I think, I had a blast. I had a blast. This was fabulous. And for me, I'm always looking for, it's like the Indiana Jones quest or the Tomb Raider quest of my life, is to find people who can explain things to me in a manner that I will understand. And I will say this, that in my handful, I can count them. Like, I have fingers still remaining to place people. You are now placed on one finger.
Thank you so much.
So for me,
in 40,000 people, I got that rank. I'm so happy.
because for me, it's for someone to explain something to me in a manner that I will understand, and I will poke you, and I will test you, and I will argue. But with you, it was fabulous. It's just completely relatable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Completely relatable, and everything just falls into place now.
So I am waiting to hear from you immediately after this conversation.
Yes. After this call.
Yeah. Imagine we would have done this in the studio. We wouldn't have left each other. We would have gone for a lunch.
We would have told Amit, we need your office. Kindly vacate the premises. We need your office.
But yes, let's talk immediately. Thank you everybody for joining in. And this was like free flowing, complete jump in with both feet kind of an experience. It was fun.
I had a blast. Thanks for having me, Aditi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Most people consider being alone is equal to being lonely, and thereby being with someone is the obvious solution to the problem. But do you know people who are lonely in spite of being in a relationship? Me too. Famous psychiatrist Carl Jung said, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you, or from holding certain views which others feel unacceptable. So the question is, what is the difference between being lonely and being alone? Is it possible to be happy and alone? What can you do to deal with your loneliness? Let's discuss this topic on our Friday episode. Make sure that you send me all your questions. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Absolutely Right. I'm keen to know what were your takeaways from this conversation with Chetna. What action will you be taking today to improve something in your life? Do write to me on my Instagram account at Aditi Surana. If you like this podcast, then don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing!
I hope you enjoyed that show. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Guys, it's been a really, really cool week. We've had a ton of interesting stuff come out. We had an episode with Kunal Shah on Cyrus Says. We've had really stellar episodes on Pesa Vesa, Advertising is Dead, Filter Coffee Podcast, on Empowering Series, all over the place. Definitely do check it out. I'm sure you'll enjoy what's been going on this week. And thanks for listening, and we hope to catch you again next week.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right, we interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, the Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar, and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.